Hi, everyone.
Hi again. We're finishing off the Pure Worship book.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a good time, haven't we?
Yes.
It's been very motivational to go through this book page by page and see their manipulation of the mind
Yeah.
of Jehovah's Witnesses. And it's sad. It's exciting to us because it gives us lots of things to think about and talk about. But every time you feel a kind of a heaviness because you realize that this is working. This propaganda effort has worked marvelously and nowhere more marvelously well than in the very last page here, because this is a supreme example of how they use terminology and repetition to brainwash Jehovah's Witnesses. We won't tell you. We'll read the paragraphs first, and you can see if you can see it. But when you looked at it, you thought right away, what's the problem?
Yeah, I saw it right away. So I think that's why we're motivated doing this, because we can demonstrate with their own books what they're doing.
Yeah, without further ado, let's go read it. Vivian's got the book in front of her, and I've got a screen. I need the screen this time because there's so many red marks on our video version of it. Okay, here's the question. The very last head is the third clarification on the last page of the Pure Worship book is on this question. Did Ezekiel see and tour the great spiritual temple that the Apostle Paul later explained? And they then give you briefly the previous understanding. Ezekiel's visionary temple is the same as the spiritual temple that the Apostle Paul explained.
And then their clarification is Ezekiel saw not the spiritual temple that came into existence in 29 CE, but an idealized vision of how the pure worship outlined in the Mosaic Law would be restored after the exile. Paul's inspired explanation of the spiritual temple focuses on the work that Jesus, as the greater high priest, accomplished from 29 to 33 CE. Ezekiel's temple vision, which never mentions the high priest, focuses on the spiritual restoration that began in 1919 CE. We therefore do not look for antitypical meanings in all detailed features and measurements of Ezekiel's visionary temple. Rather, we ought to focus primarily on the lessons that Ezekiel's vision teaches about Jehovah's standards for pure worship.
And then they go the reasoning behind the change. Ezekiel's visionary temple differs from the spiritual temple in important ways. For instance, Ezekiel's temple featured many animal sacrifices. At the spiritual temple, only one sacrifice is offered, once for all time, according to Hebrews 9, 11, and 12. In the centuries before Christ came, it was not yet Jehovah's time to reveal deep truths about the spiritual temple. So you finally figured out that you were wrong in your previous understanding. This is not the temple that Paul's talking about. Why is this mind control, though? And you saw it as soon as you read these three paragraphs together. It's a third of a page. What did you see?
Yeah, so it's a third of a page, and they say one word 7 times that you don't find in the text.
The phrase is,
Yeah.
I think the phrase is what you identified. No, not on one word, right?
Well, spiritual.
The phrase, though, is spiritual temple. 7 times.
And then for good measure, there's also spiritual restoration. So 7 plus 1, spiritual.
So what's wrong with that?
Because it's not in the text, for one thing.
It's not in the text at all.
Yeah. And,
Okay.
Yeah, and then on, why do they have to repeat that phrase over and over again? It's so that it's fixed in your head as a Jehovah's Witness. This is about something spiritual, not literal. Whereas if you read the book of Ezekiel, you're not going to find spiritual at all.
Now, this gets particularly harmful and dangerous, though, when you know this.
If you have this book.
Check this out and use it with them, because when we did that, and even when you did it, after being challenged on some of these words and phrases that you see all the time in the publications,
Yeah.
you notice right away that some weren't in here at all.
Yeah.
What's not in Ezekiel at all, when you look it up in the concordance? The word spiritual.
Yeah.
Not once in all of Ezekiel.
Which I think if I'd been told that as a witness, I would have been shocked, quite surprised.
And a bigger shock is that it's not once in the entire Old Testament.
And that would have floored me.
It is in the New Testament. There's about 30 uses of it in the New Testament. Mostly, about half of them are in Corinthians, where Paul's talking about, for instance, spiritual gifts.
Yeah.
Supernatural gifts, that some of which can be seen, like tongues,
Yeah.
heard like tongues, some of which are inside, like love. Love is something that can't be seen, but can be seen in a way.
Yeah.
So is it that the word spiritual is wrong? No, it's just not the emphasis. The Old Testament is very literal and intended to be taken literally almost all of the time. But you don't know that unless you actually use the tool you have.
Yeah.
I would say this is one of God's tools to every Jehovah's Witness
Yeah.
to dislodge them from the superstition they've fallen into.
Yeah. That's a book that you should keep.
If you have a concordance, don't
Yeah.
throw it out in your
Yeah.
rage against the empire.
So when we were completely out, I would still oftentimes turn to it for just to look up phrases that were stuck in my head, or topics that were really important to me as a witness, just to check, okay, what does the scripture say about that? Then I could look at every reference to it, and I could read around it, and it's so helpful if you're battling with, well, it's all in my head, how do I get it out?
So what's our takeaway? There is such a thing as spiritual, but the Old Testament is definitely picturing things as literal. Not only is it giving you literal history and talking about literal miracles, it's talking about a literal restoration of a literal people in a literal land.
Yeah.
And apparently the raising of a literal temple in the future. It is a vision, and this is where you get confused. For instance, the Transfiguration in the New Testament is called a vision, yet Jesus was really there. It's just that now you can see things that couldn't be seen by your literal eyes.
The other two guys.
The other two persons, and the light that is within this person you think of as Jesus of Nazareth. It's not that it's unreal. Now that's the confusion a witness falls into.
That's right, yeah.
So the takeaway here has to be there is such a thing as a spiritual temple. Paul does talk about it, and he says that the church is that spiritual temple. But rightly you say, well, that's not what Ezekiel's talking about. But then you get what Ezekiel's talking about completely wrong.
Yeah. So, this paragraph where the clarification is, look at what they find in this passage of Scripture. Should we read the Scripture?
Yeah.
And then, look at what they find in there. Like, I'd like to know where it is, if it's not in the text.
Max just walked through the door, so
He's
if you hear noise in the background, that's our son.
He's just home. Hi,
Here.
Max.
Hello, Max.
I'm sorry, I didn't check.
Okay.
He's back after 4 days on the road in Toronto and Brampton.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are in the Ezekiel passage that they cite. They only cite 5 verses, right?
Yeah.
Ezekiel
that's
40
right.
verses 1 to 5.
This is supposed to be an explanation of Ezekiel 41 to 5.
There we go.
In the 25th year of our exile, at the beginning of the year, on the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year, after the city had fallen, on that very day the hand of Jehovah was upon me, and he took me to the city. By means of visions from God, he brought me to the land of Israel, and set me down on a very high mountain, on which there was a structure like a city to the south. When he brought me there, I saw a man whose appearance was like that of copper. He had a flax cord and a measuring reed in his hand, and he was standing in the gateway. The man said to me, Son of man, look closely, listen carefully, and pay attention to everything I show you. for that is why you were brought here. Tell the house of Israel everything that you see. I saw a wall surrounding the outside of the temple. In the man's hand was a measuring reed, 6 cubits long. To each cubit a hand's breadth was added. He began to measure the wall, and its thickness was 1 reed, and its height was 1 reed.
All right, what have we got? What does he actually see? It says in verse 2, in visions of God.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he doesn't see God, does he? So it's visions of God, that is from God. That They are supernatural visions, for sure. But what does he see? He sees a mountain, a city.
Yeah, and a man.
And begins to see a temple and gets to measure it. And then he sees someone who looks like a man. Mm-hmm. We take that to be an angel, who often appear as men, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he sees things that are quite literal, including a literal angel who looks like a man. Now, there's nothing symbolic about any of this yet. Yeah. What you have is what he sees, like what the disciples saw on the Mount of Transfiguration. They're realities. Normally, you cannot see these realities, but that doesn't make them unreal.
Yeah.
The confusion is total, though, if you go the way the Watchtower goes with visions. It's always, by its very nature, unreal, whether it's happening in the present or in the future. This is in the present for Ezekiel.
So what do they find there? They say this passage focuses on the spiritual restoration that began in 1919 CE. Now, would you ever find that if you were just reading Ezekiel 40? No, but we don't read the text, we just read the explanation.
And as you read on in the text itself, from 41 to 5, for the rest of the book, which is 9 whole chapters, you don't find anything there about a spiritual vision, a spiritual reality.
Pure worship.
Pure worship. All the stuff that you think you're going to find, including the idea of God's theocratic organization. It's all about Israel. It's all about the land. It's all about the people of Israel, the people who went into exile, being restored.
So we will go through a book with the witnesses like this, and think as witnesses that we're studying the book of Ezekiel. What you're studying is a publication.
Yeah.
Which will say what they say it means.
And you see a fantastic, an ominous example of their mind control technique, though, that if they say something frequently enough, you think it's biblical.
Yeah.
Think of the phrases we isolated at the beginning of this. You just said some of them. The idea, true religion.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Pure worship, God's organization, here spiritual worship.
Yeah, pure worship, restoration.
If they say these things frequently enough, you will assume that they're in the Bible.
Yeah.
And when actually none of the phrases I just used are actually in the Bible.
Yeah.
I hope that's provocation if there's any real witnesses, loyal witnesses watching this, whether now or in the future. Think about that you're a victim of mind control and it never ends.
To the very last paragraph in the book.
What's our link?
We're linking to ORG Mind Control. Can Jehovah's Witnesses separate what they read in Scripture from Watchtower terminology? And that was based on our readings from the Proclaimer's book. And we'll put in the Ezekiel playlist if you want to go back to the beginning of this series.
So this series comes to an end. I'm in a way a little nostalgic already because we had a lot of fun doing this and we got a lot of great feedback from you guys in the comments.
Yeah, and we hope it helped.
And a lot of new people coming to our groups because of their discovery, partly because of stuff like this that was now becoming plain to them. We're going to go from Ezekiel, though. Our next prophet, our next assignment to ourselves is the book of Isaiah.
Yeah.
So we're going to be starting that series in a week or two. We'll look forward to that. Isaiah has always been my favorite book, and I've never, in my lifetime, felt that book is as appropriate to the moment, that is 2026 and what's happening all around us, I've never felt that it's more appropriate than now, because that's the book that brings together pretty much all you need to know, both about the future, but especially about the Messiah, who is also the suffering servant.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to that series.
Mm-hmm.
See you next time.
Bye.